On the day before early signing day, Nate Marshall flips from Auburn to Michigan.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day, or in this case, your second listen. It's a happy hour edition of the show. Ben Taylor of Auburn Opelika this morning hanging out with us as he does every Tuesday. We do a little crossover action. You hear this interview on Auburn Opelika this morning as well. Kind of a reaction show, Ben. Nate Marshall flips from Michigan. From Michigan to Auburn,
yes,
and then he flips to Auburn to Michigan. And I mean, Michigan's got all the momentum in the world. It's what happens when you beat your rival the way that they did over the course of the weekend, the way Auburn did not. But also, I mean, they're dropping backs like it's crazy. You saw that with Bryce Underwood flipping from LSU to Michigan, and so now they've got all the momentum in the world. And happy for Michigan. Stinks. I mean, Nate Marshall. And we'll talk about like what this could open up, and like it could be overall better for Auburn if you had to pick one or the other. Ideally, you don't want to do that when it comes to Justus Terry. But Nate Marshall was one of my favorite guys in this class, and a guy that we did not talk about enough because I think he's incredible. I think he's one of the best defensive linemen in this class. But obviously now looks like he's heading to Michigan.
Well, a couple of things don't surprise me. Number one, he's an Illinois kid, Chicago kid, so a little bit closer there. I always freak out at flips when it is somebody that is close that flips last minute like this, because then I'm like, You could have regionally, your parents can still go to the games. Things are still good, blah, blah, blah. Now that has changed a bit since NIL, just because kids can afford to fly their parents to the game now. If not, who's that one player at SC that's got like a NetJets deal or something? So they fly him anyway. But so I was shocked that Auburn flipped him. And now I'm shocked, honestly, a little bit that Michigan flipped him back. And the reason being is just because, man, where's the money coming from at Michigan? I mean, you got that big donor that just paid the $10 million along with Dave Portnoy, who helped fund that deal. And then, of course, I'm sure he's probably getting some sort of bag as Marshall in order to keep from going to the Southeastern Conference and going to stay up in the Midwest in Michigan. Auburn needs some defensive linemen, man. You and I have talked about it, and I think he was one of those that you can get excited about being impressive and possibly play it at the next level. So it's kind of a wah, especially when we look at last year. Last year was Mary Flipmas for Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Is that reversed this year? Do we see some that we thought that we were going to get as Auburn that probably go somewhere else? I don't think to the extreme that the Flipmas was last year.
Yeah. And Auburn's going to be in situation to flip a few guys tomorrow or on signing day. I don't think that's out of the question. The Nate Marshall being, the guy to flip on signing day eve, I think it's a bummer because we've talked about, okay, what does Auburn need to do this offseason to get the 2025 version of the Auburn roster ready? And you look at Gage Keys, Troy Carter, Phillip Bleedy, Isaiah Rakes, Jason Jones, none of them expected to be back next year.
Yeah.
And you just didn't have, you need bodies on the defensive line. Nate Marshall is good enough to play year one, in my opinion. Mm. And there are guys in this class that are going to be good enough, and they're going to have to be good enough. And Auburn may choose to go a little younger at defensive line than they have in previous years because of necessity. We'll see how the portal shakes out. They've got plenty of time, and I think they've got plenty of assets to make sure they're prepared there. But Nate Marshall was a guy where you could have done both. Like you don't. I think it would have helped answer that question a little bit easier and in less steps. You get a talented young guy out of high school, and you let him go day one, similar to maybe like a Keldric Faulk. So this is a blow for sure, but it does seem like they've got a plan based off of, Kenyatta Watson, is kind of a big part of what Auburn does from a recruiting standpoint. He's very vocal on socials, kind of tweeting out cryptic stuff saying like, we've got it covered, don't worry, kind of thing, which makes you think, okay, is Justus Terry a legit option? And the everydayers on this show know, and I've been very hesitant to buy into the Justus Terry hype. Everybody I've talked to internally has felt really good about Justus Terry. And I've been like, yeah, right. Okay, whatever. But now it kind of makes you wonder. It kind of makes you wonder if you lose a guy like Nate Marshall, can you reallocate resources to make it, as attractive of an option as possible for Justus Terry? Maybe so.
Well, before we get to that, I mean, is that what took Marshall away? Was it a bidding war? Did Michigan outbid, or did he just want to be home, or not home, but a few 100 miles away from home? Is what I would be, that would be my biggest question. So if it was a bidding war, then yeah, there's probably some NIL money sitting out there that can bring somebody like a Terry in, because you talked about before the quote unquote locks of Justus Terry, and they're not typically teams that lose players like Justus Terry, especially flipped at the last minute like Justus Terry. But if it's an NIL thing or something of that nature, I guess that's just the name of the game now as far as recruiting is concerned.
Yeah, Auburn's done so good at hanging on to guys, despite, almost, it's just been the fact that they've been able to hold on to and build everything they've been able to off the field, paired with on-field production or lack thereof. It's been impressive. I don't think anybody would say anything otherwise, but.
Well, because of record, because of fan interaction, because of everything else, it is a little shocking to see everybody that's still on board. As far as signing day is concerned, talk about shockers. That would be a shocker in the plus side to me if Justus Terry ends up pulling the trigger and we see his name come up, or we get a Hugh Freeze fishing meme that pops up on Wednesday. Then we probably know what we're getting there whenever that happens, because everybody else, I hate to say it like you just said it, Hayes in the barn, but I don't think people need to expect as many shockers as they saw last year. I think it'll be more along the line of the class that he's kept in. And honestly, I think Terry's a good fit. You and I were talking about Terry as a player. You mentioned just a little bit ago Marshall, possibly playing as a freshman. Terry comes in and plays as a freshman, probably plays 3 years and is off the board. Like, we'll never see a senior season at whatever school he decides to go to, correct?
Total. Yeah, total. I mean, he's a special player.
Well, he looks like a grown man in pictures. Let me just tell you that right now. I mean, he looks like a full-fledged NFL player right now as an 18-year-old or 19-year-old, whatever how old he is.
Yeah, so is Terry, is it a true toss-up? Possibly. But I do think there is a sure thing on the defensive line that's coming on early signing day. And so let's jump into that and how it impacts the class in just a moment. Right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Can you imagine buying tickets anywhere other than Game Time, Ben?
Absolutely not.
No, it makes you mad just thinking about it. It's like, there are other options? What do you mean? What do you mean there are other options? No, Game Time's great. They have the price match guarantee, where if you find another ticket that's in the same row and section somewhere else, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. You can see the view from your seat. And hey, you also can get $20 off right now. Go to just download the Game Time app. It's free in your phone's app store. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. You can't beat that, folks. What time is it? It's Game Time. Yes. So the Auburn Tigers are expected to flip Darian Smith on signing day.
Hold on, before you get into that, I wonder how many people around my office wonder what that noise is when I yell, "It's game time."
They probably don't think anything of it. I'm sure you just yell stuff all the time. Back when I worked over there, we were just yelling stuff at each other all the time.
I know.
Oh, it's just Zac and Ben.
I'm just always maybe it's just the two of us, but I was just curious about that. Like when I yelled it, I kept kind of listening out of my ear while you were talking, going, I wonder who comes and checks on me now. They think I'm like dying in the back.
Yeah, no, somebody in sales is going to come check on you for sure. No, Darian Smith, he's a 3-star defensive lineman across the board, listed at 6'2", 260 on 3. And a lot of people really like his tape. I think he's solid. I don't think he's Nate Marshall, but like he is a solid. People are going to say 3-star and just kind of scoff at it. And like, he's a good player. He's a good player. So Darian Smith, he's fully expected to flip from Tennessee to Auburn on signing day. And so does that fill up one of those spots? Then are you able to reallocate resources to pursue Justus Terry? Like, I know it's not a pure either or, but like, one, you'd rather have Justus Terry than Nate Marshall. But so like if you lose Nate Marshall but add Darian Smith and Justus Terry, you're fine with it. But that Justus Terry situation, like that's always been a big if. I still don't believe it. Like I still don't fully buy into it as much as Auburn believes that they're going to get him. I hope I'm wrong, Ben. Gosh, I hope I'm wrong. But I don't see him. I don't see him coming here. But man, it'd be one of the biggest like signing day wins in a long time if they pulled off. It might be the biggest signing day win since Derek Brown, maybe. Like I think it'd be pretty. It'd be a big deal.
He does pretty good in the pros right now.
Yeah, he was okay.
Zach, when it comes to something like you get my hopes up when we talk about stuff like this because I've told you before
I've been pretty negative today. How? How am I getting your hopes up?
Well, because you're saying there's a chance. That's the thing. You're saying, and that may not be coming from you. That may be coming from other people that are talking about it that may be giving it a chance. But now that Marshall has allocated himself to Michigan and there's an opening there, and you've got, I know he's just a 3-star, but you got a 3-star that's going to be coming in. If you can add a Justus Terry, who the star system probably doesn't exist with him because he's probably a little bit higher than what we would think. So he could come in and play day one. And
he's a 5-star by every outlet.
And exactly. And if the star system went up to 7 stars, he would be a 7-star. If it were 10, he would be 10-star. I mean, that's the thing. And that's based on looks and tape alone. I mean, that's I haven't even seen him play in person yet, or even seen him in person yet. Now, with that said, I think too that you can put some stuff around him, not necessarily even with this. I know that we weren't going to talk about this today, but even when you start looking at the portal, there's all kinds of people dropping in the portal that are defensive linemen. So you could get some help around him from guys with experience. So it makes it attractive if you're Justus Terry that you can come in and have support. Not to mention the defense was not the problem in the 2024 season. So I think that can be sold to him as well, along with
and look at all the pieces that'll be. Look at all the pieces that'll be around them too. I mean, you'll have Keldric coming back. Malik Blockton's got to be somewhat, appealing to be able to play next to. I think Keyron's going to be good. Amaris Williams, then the guys behind you like DeMarcus Riddick, and then that defensive backfield or whatever. So, and I've said flipped a few times when we talk about Terry. Like he's not technically committed right now, but it does seem like he's trending towards Georgia. So we'll see.
Does he pull? I'm not real sure yet, and I'll wait till February.
I doubt it. I mean, Wednesday is signing day now.
I mean, it is, but also now that this has happened, I mean, you wonder not only is Auburn talking to him, but how many more people? As I said, bidding war. Why not extend the bidding war a little bit longer?
I assume Terry's an early enrollee.
I think he is an early enrollee.
I can't imagine a player that caliber not enrolling early. So,
and most of the people that have done that, because there've been a couple of players, not necessarily going to Auburn, that I've read online that are like, "Hey, I'm extending my recruiting. I'm not gonna sign until February." Now, we don't know what that entails. That could be bidding war, or that also could mean people working on grades and everything else, trying to get those where they need to be in order to get in. So I don't see him doing that, but it does make me wonder now that the attention has ramped up on him even more. If it wasn't hard enough on him before, as far as not pressure, but the starlight, in the spotlight, it definitely is on him now because you see somebody like a Marshall going to Michigan. Okay, that spot's taken up. So, now it's Georgia. It's apparently Auburn that we didn't really know about, but apparently Auburn's in the mix now. And I will say this, we talked about no huge surprises on signing day. Zach, I still think he has one or two up his sleeve. This may be the one or the one of two that Auburn's able to kind of say, look, we told you we were still here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 3. I think there's 3 options. Okay. One is Justus Terry, one is Naeem Offord, and one is Usman Chroma. And I think if you get one of those 3, you got to be happy if you're an Auburn fan. If you get 2, you're elated. And if you're 3, it'd be the best class that Auburn's ever had.
Oh, I was going to say 2 of 3, and I still think you're up there as one of the best classes that Auburn ever had. I think it probably hurts with Marshall, but if you get 2 of those 3, especially Offord, which again, it comes down to that regional thing. You saw what Marshall just did. You never know if Offord kind of takes that same boat as well. And so it would 2 or 3. Grading system wise, I don't know what the pundits would say. To me, in my lifetime, what I've seen, that would be the best class I've seen sign it all.
Yeah, I can't imagine it wouldn't be. I mean, it would be. It has everything you want. It has everything you want as far as a core to build around. And when you pair it to what they did last year, I mean, you'd have a great freshman and sophomore class next year. It'd be insane. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Ben, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
You can go to aunetwork.com and you can click on the WANI logo. And of course, we're on there 6 to 9 every morning. And we have sports each and every morning just after 7. Of course, with this airing on Tuesday, you will hear a lot tomorrow morning about the preview of Auburn and Duke throughout the show, because that seems to be a fairly big marquee matchup that ESPN is really wanting to tout as being the game of the year. So we shall see. We'll talk about that. And of course, you, as I said, go online anytime, aunetwork.com. Click on the WANI logo. You find what you need.
Yeah, and be sure to tune in, whether it's on YouTube or on audio, because I've got a crossover with JJ Jackson, host of Locked On Blue Devils. That's dropping later this evening. So be sure to check that out as well. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.